Welcome back, TC McCarthy. Dr. McCarthy, I should have been calling you all along, or TC, not TC McCarthy. It's kind of weird. Or PC McCarthy, given the name of
Yeah.
your computer that keeps showing up on the screen. So, in the last episode, we talked about Russia, Ukraine, and this is again, it's still February 12th. This will air on Monday, the 21st of February. So, take a look at that episode, see how accurate we were. But right now, we're going to talk a little bit about a program that was released, or not released, but there were several incidents, and the government admitted in the New York Times that they had a program to study unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. And the program is, or at least one of the programs is called AATIP. There's a broader program that encompasses what we're about to discuss, that is a little bit more comprehensive. But first, we're going to discuss that program a little bit, and then we're going to have another segment where we talk about, based on government, everything we talk about is based on official either military or intelligence reports that have been declassified, about various forms of paranormal phenomena, mainly along kind of lines of UFOs, etc. So that'll be the first segment. The second segment will be programs that the U.S. military used, intelligence programs, to gather information about the Soviet Union using different things like remote viewing, out of body experiences, things like that. And again, we're just going to focus on. I personally have never had any experiences that would lead me to believe or disbelieve any of this stuff, but I can comment credibly on what has been declassified. The other thing I want to make note of, it doesn't mean that the stuff all really happened. If you're taking an objective viewpoint, there one area that we'd have to discuss a little bit is there reasons for an intelligence agency to engage in disinformation tactics and things like that to protect a classified program and things like that. You always have to kind of keep that hat on. So I'm just going to report on what I read. That doesn't mean it's real, but it also doesn't mean it's didn't happen. I just want to make sure that I maintain my objectivity and skepticism as we go through this. So, in terms of the first topic, the ATIP program, there's a recent book that came out called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. It sounds like it sounds like a horror novel, and I decided to check out this book on the advice of somebody who published, the editor of the best hardcore horror series of anthologies, and it is a nonfiction book published by a former, or may still be. I'd have to check on his background, but certainly in the past he'd been a DIA official, Defense Intelligence Agency, and kind of in the last few years, last decade or so, the U.S. intelligence community did a very detailed analysis of the Skinwalker Ranch, which is in the TC. How do you say it? The Uinta Basin or Uinta Basin? It's a Uinta Basin.
Your guess is as good as mine. Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Yeah, I think it's the Uinta Basin in northern Utah. So for folks who aren't familiar with Skinwalker Ranch, there's a property in the Uinta Basin that multiple owners have seen a huge spate of inexplicable cattle mutilations. They've also reported sites of what folks describe as a skinwalker, which is, in some reports I've seen, the appearance of this large dire wolf like creature. That there was one incident where someone actually fired you know a gun at the thing, and it kind of didn't do anything, and it just kind of commenced to eating the kind of local cattle, or taking chunks out of local cattle. There's also extreme feelings of fear based on proximity to certain locations on the ranch. as well as the presence of UFO sightings. And by UFO, I don't mean like little green men. I just mean aerial phenomena that no one can describe that moves in a fashion that implies some sort of intelligent design, but also seems to defy basic um, aspects of what you would consider normal
And
inertial physics. That
don't
kind of
forget, don't forget the anomalous health incidents as well.
yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit
Right.
about that. So anyway, I checked out this book. It came out in October of 2021, so it's relatively recent, and it's based on this account of, and it's not necessarily part of the AATIP program. It's part of the branch program. I can't remember the acronym, but you can check it out.
So was it, sorry to interrupt, was it part of the kind of because I know there was an umbrella program
Yeah.
over ATIP and it was part of one of those other
Yes,
ones?
it's the
Okay.
umbrella because I think AATIP is actually kind of an, I want to say nothing burger, but it was very
Small.
small, and the press had, of course, misreported it because they
Yeah.
said, "Oh, $22 million spent on this, on the umbrella program." And according to the book, the umbrella program, the way that they were able to get funding from Congress is the specs for the umbrella program were to look at next generation propulsion technologies.
A lot of
So
scientists involved in that umbrella program, I believe.
right, so it's like we're talking like 2050 and beyond, and exotic sorts of propulsion that they would investigate. And this is presented as like, oh, we're going to work with private industry to find ways to generate anti gravity propulsion systems and things like that that we're still trying to figure out. And that's the other thing too. I think back in the 80s, a lot of scientists were believed that gravity, while we still they couldn't figure out how to cause it or kind of what the mechanisms were for how it worked. They're focused on, they believed it was caused by a particle, right, a graviton. And I think right now there's the LIGO experiments in. There was sort of a LIGO experience where there were two black holes that were kind of colliding, and there was a highly sophisticated experiment where they were trying to measure the the power of that gravity, and we're able to confirm that it was it's a wave, right? So gravity waves are a thing. So and that was I think 2016 or something like that. So we're still relatively nascent in fully understanding how gravity actually works right now. All we know is that when large bodies are near each other, they can kind of curve space time, and the thing with gravity is it also impacts time, right? You can have
Yeah,
time
that's a
dilation.
really interesting relationship that I won't even pretend to understand.
Yeah, so so if you're, and in fact, you can even see it in satellites. Like satellites have to correct because they're farther away from a body. I can't remember where the time dilation is, but it's very slight, right? So anyway, this program was to examine more exotic forms of propulsion. But at the end of the day, it was also as part of its umbrella, they sent a bunch of scientists to investigate a lot of these incidents that have been happening. So the USS Nimitz incident with the gimbal and the and at the end of the day, like my understanding from reading a lot of this data is that we still don't know, what is causing this stuff. So, as an example, could it be kind of the show on the History Channel? What's that guy's name? Giorgio.
Oh yeah, the ancient aliens.
Yeah, yeah. I call him. Yeah, my at home we call him Captain Big Hair. So
Yeah.
anyway, like it's is it aliens, right? I mean, that's a it's a possibility, but it could also be some atmospheric phenomena, or could be some form of energy that we just haven't progressed that far. Like you can't see radiation, right? You can't see. You can sometimes see electricity, but there's the electromagnetic and magnetic fields that are operating all around us right now that we don't see, but we just see the effects of those things. So what we're seeing could be effects of some phenomena that we don't understand. It could also be, instead of just little green men extraterrestrials, it could also be some transdimensional beings, right? Where, again, if we take some sort of a non-electromagnetic field, there might be fields operating in some form of energy that we just don't quite understand, and maybe our reality vibrates at a different frequency as other realities that are kind of operate by the principle of superposition, right? And then every now and then something pierces the veil and comes in. So that's the program, right? They sent all these scientists out, and one area of significant interest was the Skinwalker Ranch because of all the incidents that they talked about with orbs and things like that. So the book, and again, I don't want to. You should absolutely read it. I read it in one sitting. I rarely read books in one sitting. I just spent three or 4 hours and just devoured it.
I've got it. I've got it up on my Amazon page right now.
In fact, I never buy Kindle books. I like to have like a physical book, but I wanted
Yeah,
to
me
read it.
too.
I wanted to read it so bad that I just downloaded it to Kindle and I read it in one
Gotcha.
sitting. After I read it, I couldn't sleep for a few days.
Out of fear or excitement? What?
It will freak you out.
Really?
It will freak you out. So the book opens up with two like a former like a marine intelligence guy and then a naval intelligence guy.
Can I ask a question? And you may already be getting here, but is it nonfiction or is it a work of fiction that's based somewhat in fact?
It is nonfiction.
Okay, good.
And that's why it freaked me out.
Yeah.
And it would make for amazing, like weird science fiction, sort of like weird fiction sort of stuff. So I'm reading this book, and this is so the DIA sent on DIA letterhead, like one of the authors of the book, who's a either a current or former DIA employee, sent kind of a letter to Bigelow on like DIA letterhead and asked to investigate some of this phenomenon. So he brings a team there, and when they're first there, there's a group of people kind of walking at night. So at least two of these folks were intelligence folks, had run operations in Afghanistan, possibly Iraq. So they were, war veterans, right? They've been to war. They've had to deal with kind of the ultimate fear. So they're walking along at night on the Skinwalker Ranch, and the head of the investigating unit, as he's walking, he's experiencing this irrational fear, and it seems to be intensifying as he's walking forward. But there's nothing in the environment that he can necessarily
and
see.
We're not talking Lou Elizondo, right? He's not one of these individuals. Okay.
No, he I think he may have been involved in this, but he's not. Because he's an army, right? He's an army.
Yeah.
Like there's like a Navy and Marine.
Okay.
He may have been involved, but I don't recall from the book. So as they're walking there, like this guy just feels this irrational feel, and it seems to be intensifying the the more he moves forward. And he's looking through like night vision goggles, and he sees like a black oval about 8 feet tall, but he can only see it through his night vision goggles. So they're so it's something that you couldn't see on the visual light spectrum, but you could see it through whatever field of light that the night vision got. So it's kind of a green background, and then you see this black oval 8 feet tall. And
yeah, that's interesting. I think that I can't remember the science totally behind night vision goggles, but they're light amplification. Mm-hmm. But I think that portions of it travel or cross out of visible and a little bit into either the infrared or ultraviolet or both.
And the reason I know that is because when I was in the National Training Center, I used to set up target reference points by breaking infrared chem lights, and I would just drop them on the ground. I couldn't see them, but I could see them like light up as bright as possible.
Gotcha.
So it's the infrared spectrum. Thank you for reminding me, because I couldn't remember until you triggered that memory.
Yeah.
So they could see like this black void of something.
I'm already getting freaked out. Go ahead.
And the closer they got, the more scared. So these are all like tough guys, right? And nobody's saying anything. And the leader of the group says, "Are you guys all feeling this?"
And it's like, motionless. Yeah. This thing isn't moving.
It's not moving, but they're moving toward it.
Okay.
And the Marine kind of admits, yeah, I kind of am like,
Man.
and it's like this intense fear. So the guy's like, okay, let's just push forward a little bit more, and the fear intensifies as they get closer to this thing.
I keep talking. I'm just adjusting my chair. I'm going to go mute for a second here. Sorry.
Yeah. So then he says, okay, stop. So they stop, and then they start, and they say, okay, let's start moving backward. And as they started moving backward, the fear started to diminish. So, is there conventional technology that could do something like that? I think so. So, if you use infrasound, um, it does tend to cause feelings of um, paranoia and things like that. So, but I don't know if like we would be able to figure something out. Like
Strong magnetic fields can sometimes invoke emotions.
Yeah, and there's things like, so if you look at sightings of the Dark Watchers, right, in the like Big Sur, right? So Dark Watchers are these like shadowy. So Stein, what's his name? I'm trying to remember. He's a famous novelist, wrote Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, Steinbeck.
Steinbeck. So in The Red Pony, I think, like one of his short stories, he mentions the there's like a Dark Watchers sighting because he grew up in or worked in Big Sur and things like that.
Are those the things with like these two? They just look like two legs walking along.
No, they're like, if you think of like the phenomena of crap, I'm trying to remember, like the shadow beings that people who have sleep paralysis.
Yeah, gotcha.
They're kind of similar to that, but they're like extremely tall shadows, with like a hat, whatever, and they usually are on like the peaks of hill, or not are, but have been reported on like the hillside, like hillsides or the mountains of the Big Sur area. Now, the scientific explanation behind these sightings is that the crashing of the waves and things like that. There's a lot of infrasound. I think it's infrasound, right? Causes, it can cause paranoia and
hallucinations and that sort of
hallucinations.
Yeah.
So anyway, there is a natural effect that could kind of cause this. But anyway, that's just how it opens. Okay. So during the course of, and I'm skipping over a ton of different things, but during the course of these things, they reported seeing like the Skinwalker phenomena, where you'd have like a bipedal wolf like or canine like being. Some people refer to them as dogmen. I think there's like a whole genre of that sort of stuff in Michigan reported, but I don't know if I don't think they talk about it in the book. This is more of a phenomenon that's localized, at least the Skinwalker Ranch of the government investigation. So they would see these things, and then they would also see like blue orbs and red orbs, and then sometimes they would also see like they would see the normal UFO sort of sightings. Then sometimes they would see portals in the sky just open up, and then something would come out, and the portal would close like a tear. So they never really quite came to, at least declassified, a conclusion for this sort of phenomenon. But the thing that was really freaky about it is that some of the individuals who came to do this investigation at the ranch went back home to Virginia. And at least one of them, one of their kids, woke up in the middle of the night. Like they would hear like footsteps and things outside their doors.
Oh, that's freaky.
They would see like blue orbs. And by the way, like these the people who worked on this ranch were working on a classified operation. So they didn't tell their families about it.
Oh boy.
Because they couldn't.
Yeah.
One kid saw a bipedal wolf standing at the edge of their property, if in the woods, and kind of just like looked at it, looked at the kid menacingly, and then just disappeared into the woods. So they call this the hitchhiker effect.
Yeah.
Well, it gets
Yeah.
better. And then one of these kids goes to school, and then like spends a day there, and the next day he goes back to school, and one of the kids that he interacted with was like bloodshot eyes, like couldn't sleep, and he's just like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "I saw these like blue orbs." So they started modeling this like you would a contagion. So what's that number that they have?
The R value, R naught value, or whatever
Yeah,
it
the R
is.
naught value is 3.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like they actually like studied it, right? So it's like there was like a contagion effect of interacting with this thing. So and there were a bunch
Well,
of other studies.
You hear people talk about these phenomena, or this phenomena, where there's this concern where while you're observing it, there's a tendency for it to also observe you, right? And
Right.
that's freaky.
So, and there were some other situations. They also went into the USS Nimitz incident. Everybody needs to go to the New York Times. I don't need to show you what happened there, but they also looked at some incidents where there were these blue orbs in isolation elsewhere, where they would cause like really mess with your like T cell count. And there were other incidents where where someone reported seeing blue orbs, and they had real life medical impacts from it, and they kind of went into a lot of detail around that. I don't want to. I've already given away like the hitchhiker effect, which is the thing that's something that absolutely terrified me. Now, I think the consensus seemed to be around the thing I talked about with different frequencies of reality interacting all at once, and portals from other realities or dimensions. But I don't think they really know what's going on.
Have you seen any of the YouTube interviews with the current cast, some of the members of the Skinwalker Ranch, whatever it's called, on History Channel?
Yeah, Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. Well, they've done YouTube videos with interviews.
So there are YouTube video interviews. You have to look for them. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head.
And just so everybody knows, one of the key star of that show, Travis, is also a Bane author, as I am, and as TC is.
Yeah, that's actually he published with. I think he's written his own books, but I know he published at least one with John Ringo or somebody.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of them with Bane.
Yeah, but anyway, this was one of the interviews that I remember. Was the guy who wound up being the property manager for Skinwalker Ranch. So he doesn't own it, but he reports directly to the owner, and I can't remember his name, but he's on the show. You see him all the time.
Yeah, Brandon Fugel is.
That's it. That's the guy, and. So he talks about the hitchhiker effect. So they're experiencing a lot of the same stuff. You don't see it on the show, but they're experiencing a lot of the same stuff that you just described.
I mean, that's like, because my question is just like, what are these things? Like, what is this bipedal? Well, like, what the?
That's weird. If the guys who went there, the scientific team went there, took notes, took readings, gathered data. If they can't explain it, what hope do we have, right? To explain it. I remember, did they talk in the book about, I remember that original team, there was a story out there that they had set up cameras. They didn't get anything on camera, but they did get clear evidence that something was messing with their cameras.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, every time there was every time something they never cover that. Every time whatever is interacting with them there has the capability to turn off our systems. And I don't know if it's just a radiation effect or like some natural phenomena, or if they just represent some entity or intelligence that is able to manipulate things, at least at the level of individual electrons, potentially even at the quantum scale.
And I know that Travis, who you mentioned, didn't he on one of the episodes? I believe this is true. Um, he got symptoms that looked very much like exposure to gamma radiation.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's bizarre.
So I believe in the book they weren't able to verify the bit about gamma radiation. I don't know if it was in the book or I read somewhere that the government was not able to, did not find that. Right, that was something that was unique to at least the show.
Yeah.
Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, but I don't think we were able to detect anything like that. I
Well,
could be wrong. It's been,
was
like I
it
said, I
was
read
it
in one sitting. So
was Brandon the one on the show who had the head injury thing where his skin was separating from his skull?
no, that was one of the security guys, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some weird health stuff going on with people who spend time there.
Well, there's also that weird room. Remember they found that room that was like it was walled off.
Yeah, a little
found,
concrete room.
And it was like no entrance, no way to get in there, and it was like, and there was like fresh bone there or something like that.
Yeah, like no explanation why a room like that would ever exist.
The other thing that they found, there were obviously there were cattle mutilations, right? That, but they would happen relatively quickly. Oh, I think there's another example where there were dogs that started chasing something into the woods, and then they just found like burned or like fused remains the next day, like just.
And then I know that I think when Bigelow bought the ranch, or maybe this was beforehand, whenever somebody bought the ranch, they found like massive locks and dog chains and massive locks on the inside of the house. So it's clearly
each room was like locked doors
to keep something out, and it's just bizarre stuff that goes on there. And one of the this is fringe. This is not something that came from declassified documents or anything, but I'll throw it out there.
And by the way, I'm assuming the book is a declassified document since it's written by a DIA official, and it would have to have been cleared before they released it.
Yeah.
Now here's the other thing too. Like, one thing that we should also be discussing is there a reason for government misinformation? Like, as an example, if I wanted to hide a classified military program, like a weapons program, or the creation of a new aerospace technology, there would be an incentive for the government to try to explain away normal. I'll give you a real example. So one of my classmates was a stealth bomber pilot, bombed Baghdad. And he said that prior to that bombing, they would rehearse over a large Midwestern U.S. city. And he said every time that they would conduct these rehearsals, there would be reportings of UFO sightings. So like a lot of these things are,
it helps.
What's that?
It helps keep things secret.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there any reason for them to concoct these strange stories as disinformation?
Sure.
But what would we be hiding by saying like there's a 7-foot bipedal wolf?
Yeah, you got me. Maybe, maybe we have a classified genetic engineering program, right? Like that would be the kind of stuff.
Some non-lethal weapon that causes like mass hysteria or like has a contagion effect that people hallucinate in the same way. I mean, again, I really have to reach to come up with these explanations.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
I don't believe, for the record, I don't believe we have a secret genetic engineering program creating wolfmen.
I wouldn't be surprised if, we did have like a secret mass hysteria program. That's how LSD came into use, right?
Sure. Yeah. Agent Buzz too. What was it? BZ. I can't remember the scientific name for it, but crazy stuff.
That's what I know from kind of the Skinwalker Ranch stuff.
But wait, let me go on that fringe journey I was about to go on. There is a segment of the let's just call them the UFO community. I don't know if that's the right phrase. There's a segment that believes, with the cattle mutilations and other things that we were visited by entities who presented themselves as aliens from another star system, and then Eisenhower met with them and made a deal in exchange for technology. Eisenhower's own daughter or granddaughter, now admittedly, I've seen videos of her, and she's I don't believe much that she says. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. But she does claim that is in fact a true story. Now, whether you believe that or not, I don't know. I tend to be very skeptical of these things. I really want to believe. Let me make that clear. I want to believe all this stuff, but when I go and look at the evidence and what facts can be sifted out of all the story, there aren't many facts.
By the way, there's a lot of disinformation too.
Yeah.
Right. There's like some of this stuff is slipped in. I've seen more exotic things that I won't talk about on air, but I didn't see it in official government documents. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw it on the internet. So, could they be true? Sure. But are they likely to be true? I don't know. So, and here's another example. Now this is not official government documentation. This is based on an account of one individual who is a very controversial individual. But as soon as I say his name, you know who I'm talking about. So you're familiar with Bob Lazar.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Right. So there's some interesting things that he said, because he claims, for people who don't know, he claims to have worked on an installation called S4, which is in the Nevada desert, where he worked on reverse engineering or studying these exotic craft, and I think there were 9 of them. He read a bunch of background documentation, and one of the things mentioned that at least one of the craft had been recovered in an archaeological dig. And then the other piece that's really creepy is I think there was some allegation that we had interacted with some of these beings either through a crash or something like that, and they had referred to humans as containers.
Ugh.
So I don't know.
Containers of what?
Yeah. So I'll leave it at that.
Damn.
I'll leave it at that. So we can go to our next segment, because I think we're.
Holy cow! Hey, wait! Before we go to the next segment, I have somebody you need to check out. He has done a couple of YouTube videos. He's a retired CIA and DNI official. His name is John Ramirez. He was with the DS&T when he was at CIA. This is all according to him. I'm not confirming any of this.
Right.
Okay. But his bona fides really do seem to be there. And he has held up an award he got from the CIA. He seems to be the real deal. He is trying to get declassified information pertaining to an event he went to in 2001. It was an unclassified, let's call it a conference, but it was really like a one-day symposium at a hotel somewhere in the DC area.
Yeah, that's very CIA.
Yeah, and he said the whole topic, there were a bunch of people there from academia, and it was a very academic focused symposium. And the whole topic, he was surprised that he was allowed to bring his cell phone in.
Oh, this is about disclosure.
It was basically, I don't know if it is or not. You tell me when I'm done. He was talking. He claims that the whole series of speakers and topics was related to how human DNA has an element of hybrid DNA with some alien species, and that the academics in the room were talking as though this was common knowledge amongst them. Now, keep in mind, academia has a relationship with the intelligence community. So is that possible? Yes. Now, this guy is not a scientist, even though he was with the DS&T. He's not a scientist. So, it's entirely possible that what he went to was a conference on panspermia, right? Which is a valid, hypothesis.
Well, it's like an octopus, right? Like there's nothing on Earth that you think could have come from space.
Right. Right. And Watson and Crick, I can't remember which one, but one of those two were the ones that originally came up with the idea of panspermia, where some fragment of genetic material comes on a comet and mixes in with the local stuff. So, or creates entirely new life.
Or it could have just been a disinformation attempt.
Who knows? Right? Yeah, definitely worth checking out, though. Anyway, that's all I had.
Okay. All right. Thank you, TC. Now we're going to move into our next segment on declassified programs that the U.S. government ran using either psychic abilities or paranormal abilities to conduct intelligence operations for the United States government. All right. Thank you, TC. It was good meeting your container today.
Yeah.